Hi everyone. You probably heard the saying everything is possible or nothing is impossible, but let me tell you one thing. I'm 100% sure that the existence of nothingness is impossible. Today I'm going to explain from my point of view why nothing or nothingness as a state cannot exist and why those words are only labels with which humans try to describe something that isn't real. Let's begin with trying to describe what nothing or nothingness means. Nothing and nothingness mean total absence of everything, which means that if you try to say it or it is, it implies existence. So it's no longer nothing. And to even say nothing exists is already a contradiction. Nothing and nothingness means a kind of state that cannot exist even hypothetically. It's actually much harder to understand it than infinity, because there is a way to describe infinity, because it exists. It is something that stretches without limit. When I try to describe infinity to people that I end up discussing it with, I find the easiest way to describe it is through mathematics, because there is always a number you can add to the biggest number you imagine. Doesn't matter how many figures you imagine, you can always add +1. And the number of figures can be huge. You can imagine even a paper the size of Earth. You would spend your whole life writing the figures, but you would never even closely fill up that paper with the biggest number. So, for me, in my opinion, infinity exists, and it is proven by this mathematical example. But nothingness, on the other side, cannot really even be imagined or experienced as a thought. It is not a state, not a place, not even a possibility. Therefore, this alone proves that nothing or nothingness cannot exist at all. Not now, not ever, not for a fraction of a second, and not even before the Big Bang. To create something out of nothing is impossible because nothing has no properties, no space, no time, no energy, no laws, no potential. Creation requires at least one of those things to exist first. For something to appear, there must be energy, a field, a law, a cause, a fluctuation, or a process already in place. In nothing, there is nothing that can change, react, vibrate, transform, or produce anything. That's why every known physical theory still begins with something. Even if it's just energy, quantum fields, vacuum fluctuations, or the laws of physics. Real nothingness cannot create because it has nothing to create with and nowhere to create it. In my view, the universe did not come from nothing, it just changed form. It came from something that already existed. In physics, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. That means that the universe wasn't born from absolute nothingness, it was a transformation of whatever existed before. Energy, quantum fields, a prior state of space-time, or some deeper form of reality we don't fully understand yet. The Big Bang was not the beginning of existence itself, but the beginning of the universe as we know it, expanding space, matter, time, and energy in a new form. Something had to be there first for change to happen, because change is only possible when something already exists to undergo change. Nothingness cannot be treated as a physical or metaphysical state or even be called a non-state, not even for a fraction of a second, because calling it a state already gives it existence, duration, or definition. A state must have at least one property: time, space, potential, or a condition that can be described. But the moment something can be described, measured, or said for it to be, it has already become something, and therefore it is no longer nothing. The moment true nothing is imagined or thought of, It becomes an idea or something in our minds. It has position, a meaning, and therefore a presence. That is why true nothingness cannot be imagined, because doing so automatically turns it into something. Given that nothing has no properties, it cannot be treated as a state, a place, a condition, or something real. A state or place must have at least one feature: time, position, duration, possibility, or definition. But the moment something has a feature, it already belongs to existence. That's why calling nothing a state or place makes no sense, because a state or a place is already something. It's logical that nothingness does not exist at all. There is only existence in an endlessly changing shape. What we call reality is never created from true nothing and never returns to it. Instead, it transforms. Matter becomes energy, stars become dust, dust becomes new stars and planets. Energy spreads, cools, shifts form, but never becomes absolute nothing. True nothingness, that means no space, no time, no energy, no possibility, has never been observed and cannot logically exist, because the moment anything is, even a thought or a law of physics, it is no longer nothing. So existence doesn't appear and disappear. It only moves, collapses, explodes, reorganizes, constantly shifting into new forms without ever becoming nothing. The existence must be eternal, because the alternative, absolute nothing, was never possible. If true nothing were possible, then existence could disappear into it or begin from it. But nothing offers no space, no time, no laws, no potential, no ability for anything to appear or vanish. Since something exists now, and since real nothingness cannot host creation of destruction, means that existence could never have come from it and can never fall into it. This means that existence has no true beginning in nothing and no final ending in nothing. It always was and it always continues. As I said before, it's only changing form. I think it was infinity that caused the Big Bang. Infinity as a condition of existence that always was. It snapped the primal silence, how I call it. And this primal silence was not emptiness, it was potential, a primal vibration, a state that held all possible vibrations inside it, the same way white light contains every color of the spectrum. The primal silence was a product of a primal frequency that had its counterpart, its flipped phase, like a plus wave and a minus wave, perfectly aligned, same intensity, opposite phase. It was potential, held in perfect balance. Here, infinity jumps in as it expands forever. At some point, the balance in the primal frequency and the primal silence shifted, causing the misalignment of phases that could no longer perfectly cancel each other out. So tiny phase shifts appeared as disturbances inside the primal silence all over the infinite space. And just like in real life, when two opposite sound waves lose alignment, silence breaks and bursts into noise. Frequencies separated, and at that moment, energy unfolded, and that was the beginning of the universe. Not creation out of nothing, but silence breaking into motion, into light, into vibration, into a universe made of frequencies. But I'm going to talk more about that in a future episode called Before the Big Bang, the Quantum Silence Misalignment Theory, which is one of my theories that I want to discuss with you in the near future. Let's synthesize and lay out 3 examples to show why nothingness simply cannot exist. First one is nothingness cannot be a state, because a state is still being something. It has properties, and if it exists as a state, it isn't nothing. The second one is Nothingness cannot be somewhere out of existence, because to be outside is still a relation, and that requires existence. And if it relates to anything, it isn't nothing. The third one, nothingness cannot exist before something, for example, before the universe, because if it existed before, then it already has time, sequence, duration, and again, it isn't nothing. Now I'd like to respond to some scientific claims, not to disrespect them, but to offer a counter-argument. Some popular cosmologists and science communicators often repeated the idea that the universe came from nothing. However, their version of nothing usually means a quantum vacuum, empty space, or absence of matter, not true philosophical nothingness, which would mean no space, no time, no laws, no potential at all. One of them is Lawrence Krauss, physicist and cosmologist, wrote the book A Universe from Nothing. He claims the universe could appear from nothing, but his nothing still includes quantum fields, energy, and physical laws. So in reality, that is not true nothingness of which I'm talking about. Stephen Hawking, I'm sure you know who he was. In his book, The Grand Design, he said the universe can spontaneously create itself from nothing because of laws of gravity and of laws like gravity. But again, this nothing already assumes the existence of physical laws. So no true nothingness again, of which I'm talking about. Some scientists say that nothingness is unstable, but if it can fluctuate, collapse, or produce a universe, then it was never nothing. A state that has laws, fields, energy, or potential is already something, not the absence of existence. So for me, the claim nothingness is unstable is a wrong statement. Other scientists claim that the quantum vacuum is nothing, but that is logically impossible, because the moment you define it or give it properties like energy, fields, or fluctuations, it becomes something. True nothing has no properties to define, no laws to follow, and no ability to change. And then there are those who take yet another stance altogether, saying there is no outside of the universe, space is not expanding into anything, space itself is expanding. But expansion is a change of size, and if something grows, it must grow into something or from something. If the universe is expanding, there are only two options. The first one, it expands into something. The second one, it creates new space out of nothing. But since nothingness has no size, no boundary, no distance, no potential, you cannot expand into it, and you cannot create space out of it. So if there is no outside, then expansion makes no sense. And if the outside is nothing, expansion is impossible. So the option number 2 is out. Therefore, something must exist beyond what we see, even if it is not matter, not galaxies, but an endless field of infinity, silence, and potential. As we can see, there are respected physicists and cosmologists who suggest that everything starts from nothing and goes back to nothing. But I am free to think it is logically wrong. If nothing cannot exist, then nothing cannot be a beginning or an ending. The universe did not come from nothing, and it will not end in nothing. Existence is not a line between two zeros. It is a circle of transformation inside something that always was and always will be. That said, I'm obviously playing on the team Sir Roger Penrose with his proposed cyclic cosmology and Aristotle with his idea of an eternal universe. At this point, we have already stepped into physics, cosmology, philosophy, and logic, and all of them, in their own way, are trying to answer the same thing. The conclusions I'd like to mention and underline are the following. The closest thing to nothingness that I can imagine is the primal silence within infinity, which is not nothing, but it is pure potential and existence in its most primordial form. Since nothing cannot exist, something must have always existed, and therefore existence is eternal. Also, here are two definitions I structured at the end about nothing, which I find simple and true. The first one is, nothing means the complete absence of everything. And the second, nothing isn't. I conclude that nothing and nothingness can be only human words, nothing else. Just labels that humans use to describe the absence of something in everyday life or the absence of everything, whether in logic or in astrophysics. With these thoughts, I reached a point of clarity for myself and I've shared it with you. I'd be very interested to read your comments. Feel free to share your own views. I think it might get very interesting. Thank you for watching and enjoy existence. Until next time.